really think a crown will give you power?
Arms give you power.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know me, I've been an adamant fan of George's books for years prior to the show, becoming quite frankly addicted to the world of Ice and Fire, and even originally creating the whole channel as being primarily Game of Thrones focused content. So you could say I poured my heart into these characters, into this show, into these books, for a great many years. So to sit here with you now is an odd sensation. At the end of it all, I think for a lot of us, we've seen this coming for quite some time. Arguably as early as Season 5 or even Season 4, when the show began to run dry of its source material. And D&D, or otherwise known as Dumb and Dumber, were left with essentially a basic gist of what the books was going to end as from George. And they rushed to fill that gap in order to reach the climax of the story. Before I begin with any of this, I'd just like to say the work of the actors is great. I can't fault the actors in the show at all. They've all done an excellent job. The art department, fucking the cinematography, all that, it's great. It really is. It looks beautiful. And it's very well acted. But we're not here to discuss that. The issue present is the writing. And you can't expect the world of an adaptation. There are always creative limits in a show or a movie where a book has comparatively none. A book can be ambitious as it wants to without any kind of constraints. But that doesn't necessarily excuse or change the bad taste that's left in my mouth by this final season. It's something I expected. It's something I think a lot of us did. I'd grown less and less love-struck with the show since the moment they butchered Barristan Selmy. Why? For shock value. And I think this is one of the first and certainly not the last times that you see D&D doing something purely to subvert your expectations. Specifically, in Selmy's case, the expectations of book readers who believed that he was going to live and had, quite frankly, a lot of really cool stuff happens to him in the books that you never get to see in the show because of his early and unexpected death. They killed him purely to subvert your expectations and get rid of the character early, as basically a pot shot to readers. Didn't see that coming, did you, you dirty reading bastard? How dare you read the books? But the thing is, subverting my expectations is not good writing. Surprises and shocks can be well done, but not at the cost of character development, not leaving me thinking, who the hell is this character that has suddenly decided to do this? It's a trend that escalated as the seasons went on. This style of writing for cheap shock value led us eventually to Season 8, and what is, simply put, disappointing. But what makes a good story? In layman's terms, setting, characters, and a climax. You take the setting, you add the characters, and then you develop those characters, and then you reach a believable climax. Wait, this wasn't in the script. Why would I do... This is madness. What the fuck? Oh, that was a waste of good whiskey.
There are many times when we're planning a season and, you kind of have to avoid giving the audience exactly what they want because then things start to become predictable. Because then things start to become predictable.
Season 8 is that whiskey being poured over my desk, leaving me unsatisfied because I expected a drink after all that preparation. You'd think it would go in the glass. But instead I have an empty glass with ice that's melting and a desk that now smells of alcohol. I'm disappointed, ladies and gents. Thankfully, I'll simply pour myself another glass and that'll be that, but I've no such solution for Season 8. Who is to blame for this? Who can I drunkenly yell at for this incompetence? Let us talk to the writers and hear what they have to say.
And then they lead you on that Jon's chasing the Night King.
But it just didn't seem right to us for this moment. You kind of have to avoid giving the audience exactly what they want because then things start to become predictable.
Jesus Christ! Okay, let's not speak to Dumb and Dumber. Yeah. Instead, we'll listen to someone with talent who knows how to write. Yeah. I'm gonna need more whiskey for this shit.
Okay, these people have figured out something. Should I now change it? And I decided that way lay disaster. You know, I'd laid in clues and things that pointed to a particular thing. And if I now changed it because one person in 1,000 had figured it out, the new solution would not be satisfactory because the clues point in another way. It would be a cheat in a sense. Do you change it and come up with something goofy and outlandish that you haven't done the foreshadowing for, that you haven't laid the foundation for, just in order to surprise people? I mean, sure, I could have like aliens come down, and that would certainly surprise the hell out of everybody. No one is predicting that, but it would ruin the series.
Yeah.
You know, if you've planned your book that the butler did it, and then you read on the internet, someone has figured out that the butler did it, and you suddenly change in midstream and it was the chambermaid who did it, then you screw up the whole book.
We hope to kind of avoid the expected, and Jon Snow has always been the hero, the one who's been the savior, but it just didn't seem right to us for this moment.
Subverting my expectations by taking a character that we have developed to act one way and making them act completely alien to their own character. It is not the ending that is the issue here, but the execution. It's the journey that's important here, or more accurately, the lack of one. Using Daenerys as a prime and most glaringly obvious example, she goes from essentially a 6 or maybe a 7 if you want to be generous on the crazy scale, and jumps immediately to a 10. We've somehow missed 8 and 9 or 7, 8 and 9, and it feels rushed. It feels jarring. The reason for this is Dumb and Dumber have a basic idea of how it's supposed to end. But in their rush to finish the series, they have failed quite spectacularly in filling in those gaps that led to Dany being that crazy. It feels like we've missed an entire season of character development. Even to people in my family who've watched the final season and have never read the books in their life, they've only ever watched the show, they themselves, just as show watchers, casual show watchers, have agreed with me that it felt rushed. I believe the word my own father used when he talked to me about it vaguely was sloppy. And unfortunately, I have to agree, I can't think of a better word. The writing has been sloppy. Dumb or Dumber, at one stage inside an Insider episode, called Samwell's brother his elder brother when he's actually the younger.
You know, Sam's older brother was not a bad person.
Heartsbane. Supposed to go to my firstborn son after I die. To him.
And there's a scene in Winterfell where Gendry proposes to Arya where he calls himself Gendry Rivers when he's Gendry Waters.
I'm not Gendry Rivers anymore. I'm Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End.
You'd think they'd be paying more attention, but then again, Starbucks coffee and water bottles. It appears someone just wasn't paying attention this series at all, just like nobody was apparently paying attention when they did all of the sieges that made absolutely no logical sense whatsoever. Looking at the Battle of Winterfell, we first of all see the entire army of the living outside of the walls? Does anyone know how sieges work? You have a castle for a reason. Historically speaking, admittedly, sallying out of a castle was incredibly common. A common siege was a battle of attrition and morale more than anything else. Obviously, attrition doesn't work against ice zombies, and neither does morale, really, but why would you put all of your troops outside of the castle walls? And why would you only have one trench and only one means of lighting it? Why in the hell would you send your cavalry into a full-on head charge against the giant army of zombies for no reason? But hey, I'm not a military genius, apparently. Throwing the cavalry at zombies is a good idea. Oh, no, never mind, they're all dead. Don't worry, though, Jorah and Ghost are perfectly fine, because plot armor. Those two should have died. Not to sound mean, I love Ghost, he's a good boy, but, we should have had a scene where Ghost was ripped to shreds by the zombies, because there's no way he made it out of that fucking clusterfuck alive. There's no way Jorah or anyone made it out of that clusterfuck alive, but plot armor. Regardless, despite massive tactical blunders on the part of the living and having thrown away their cavalry for no reason, Arya shows up with her Deus Ex Machina crap and stabs the Night King like it's nothing. Subverting your expectation. Kill me now. Fucking Christ. I laughed so hard during that scene. I really did. I just burst into laughter. Fucking Jesus Christ. And so, in the most anticlimactic way possible, Arya kills the Night King. And does anyone else wonder why Valyrian Steel can kill the Night King but Dragonfire can't? Because Dragonfire is what made Valyrian Steel. That and magic, but Dragonfire is magic. So, yeah. But then again, the only reason you had that scene where Dany tried to burn the Night King is so that the Night King could go, ha ha, and subvert your expectations. Fucking kill me now. Moving on, Dany forgets about the Iron Fleet, despite her previous war council a few scenes earlier reminding her about the Iron Fleet.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
Surprise, motherfucker!
You know, the Iron Fleet that wiped out her navy before and ambushed her before. And, you know, when Euron killed those sand snake bitches that everyone hated because they destroyed the Dornish plot. Yeah, that Iron Fleet. It's, that fleet just, 360 no-scope the shit out of a dragon mid-flight. How did Dany not see that? The weather appears to be a perfectly clear day. Like, how did she not... Was she just not paying attention? It seems to me that Dany just doesn't pay attention a lot to anything. Because if she was paying attention, she'd have realised that the Iron Fleet still existed. Between me and you guys, I don't know whether or not Dany forgot about the Iron Fleet or Dumb and Dumber forgot how to write. I don't know. I've given up giving a shit at this point. It's all downhill from here, ladies and gentlemen. It's all downhill from here. At this point, I was rooting for Cersei. I hope she kills them all. But unfortunately for us, Cersei's ballistas have been given a nerf by the development team after too many players reported that they were overpowered. Their range is now apparently significantly shitter, their accuracy significantly shitter. They can't hit Dany and her party of like 40 dudes that just march up to King's Landing Gate, in what reminds me of something out of a scene in Monty Python and the Bloody Holy Grail.
Now this is your last chance. I've been more than reasonable. If you do not agree to my command... Jesus Christ!
At least the French in that fucking siege had the common sense to throw a cowl at the enemy. Cersei has a buttload of ballistas literally pointing at every single important person in her enemy's army, but she don't fucking throw no cows at nobody. And really, the siege itself goes about as well. They land on a beach within range of the walls for some reason, and again, they don't appear to get attacked by the walls because reasons. Jon lines his entire army outside of the gates, and again, still isn't attacked by the giant ballistas. The Golden Company is outside the walls for no reason whatsoever. Don't get me started on the Golden Company, by the way. I'd hoped that Game of Thrones was going to surprise the shit out of me and subvert my expectations in a good way by having the Golden Company betray Cersei and reveal young Griff, adding a new layer of plot to the whole story where Dany has to debate with herself as whether or not Jon is the real Aegon Targaryen or this pretender inside of King's Landing is the real Aegon Targaryen. But, fuck that shit. Let's just do this and have Drogon completely burn the entire fucking Iron Fleet because he's now invincible and destroy every single one of the ballistas. So yeah, the dragon basically wins them the entire battle, blows up the fucking gate, wipes out the Golden Company, and hands Dany's army the entire battle on a silver platter. Which is, to be fair, exactly what you'd expect from a dragon. It is that powerful. It is that big of a game changer. Aegon the Conqueror showed up in Westeros and basically kicked everyone's asses just because he had dragons. He changed the rules. So I'm not really at all bothered about Drogon beating the shit out of the Iron Fleet and fucking up all the ballistas. Cersei was arrogant as fuck to think that she could pull that off. It's a 1 in a million shot to take down a dragon like that. 1 in a million. But Euron Greyjoy lands, what, 3 separate bolts? Until the ballistas are nerfed by the developers, and then they can't hit anything. But I digress. The Golden Company is annihilated. The gates to the city are wide open. Historically speaking, once the enemy is inside the city, you're pretty much fucked. It's at this point in the show where, once again, they subvert your expectations. We are supposed to believe that Dany is batshit crazy enough all of a sudden to think, I'm gonna go burn civilians and children and women for no fucking reason whatsoever, despite the fact that my entire character and my entire being is not wanting to be the Queen of Ashes, not wanting to be her father. She suddenly snaps, just like that. So she butchers the entire city, rather than just flying to the Red Keep where all of her enemies are and burning that to the ground. That would have made more fucking sense. Maybe if she'd flown to the Red Keep, burn it to the ground, and set off all of her father's wildfire, there'd be some irony to that, and people would still hate her for it, but she'd have to embrace the role because they'd blame her for it. They'd blame her for it even if she didn't want it. That is how I would have gone about it. It would have been an accident on her part, even if it was somewhat of a mad move to do in destroying the Red Keep. Those actions would have had consequences, and ultimately her father's goal of burning the city to the ground will have come to fruition because of her actions, and she would have been seen as a mad queen for it, even if that wasn't her actual intention. That anger, that fire and blood, that rage inside of her. If she'd burnt down the Red Keep, I'd be like, okay, I can see her doing that. Destroy all of her enemies. Dany has never shown any mercy to her enemies, to evil men, evil women, to evil tyrants. But women and children? No. There's no justification for this. Nothing in her character arc has suggested that she would murder and butcher civilians. It's so far against her character. And see, this right here is the result of incredibly sloppy and lazy writing. There are so many ways that you could get the same ending, but with far more satisfying execution. Sadly, we're not dealing with George R.R. Martin here. I have no doubt he will go for a similar ending, but it will be far more satisfying. We're dealing with Dumb and Dumber, who have rushed the shit out of this season. They've been rushing for some time, I feel. And ultimately, it leads us to this conclusion. It leads us to this ending, which leaves us disappointed. That is purely the word for it. Disappointment is what it is. I had fallen out of love, or at least the amount of love that I used to have for the show dwindled a lot since they moved from the book sources. It became more and more to me of a fan fiction. I cared less and less about what story Dumb and Dumber were telling. Even if it is based in the world that I've come to love, they aren't the same characters to me. Past a certain point in the show, they stopped being the characters from the books that I knew and loved. These weren't their stories to me. These were fan fictions that became rushed and poorer quality as we went. Amazing acting, massive budget, beautiful cinematography. The props department, everyone else that works on the show has done a tremendous fucking job of this. They truly have. And I'd never, ever say otherwise to them. But the writing has let everyone down for this final season. The actors, everyone on set, the fans, it's let everyone down. It's rushed, and it is sloppy. I hear so many people complaining about the ending, or what's happened, how it was concluded, who ended up on the Iron Throne, or what happened to the Iron Throne, or who was king, or blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that. I'm fine with the ending. It was always going to be bittersweet. It was always going to be, as George once put it, looking out over a graveyard and feeling a sense of sorrow. Not a happy ending, just an ending. Everyone doesn't get to live happily ever after. It's not the ending I disagree with, it's the execution, it's the journey, it's how much was skipped and forgotten and pushed aside because the writers were lazy. And at some point, they must have stopped caring, or perhaps they never cared at all. And all they were ever interested in is making money. Welcome to Hollywood, I suppose. I couldn't really say. All I know is I am disappointed, I'm let down, but above all, I am sad to see the show go. It will be missed. Even if it wasn't everything that I'd hoped it would be, I'd accepted that a long time ago. I could see the decline from very far away. I'd accepted a long time ago that it wasn't what I'd wanted. It wasn't what I'd hoped. And that those hopes would have to be put with George and the books. And I look forward to reading them. I'm sure I will love them. Without further ado, we'll end this here. I've spoken my piece, I've given my opinions, I've ranted for quite a bit. Although I'm sure I could make it several hours long if I went on about every single plot point. Jaime's entire character arc, not getting to see Sansa and Arya's reaction to Jon's reveal, the butchered Dornish storyline, the missing young Griff storyline, Victorian Greyjoy, so much of the Reach with House Tyrell, the whole Sansa and the Vale plot, Lady Stoneheart, the Northern Conspiracy, so much potential story that I would have loved to have seen, but will sadly never get to. As I said at the beginning, you can't expect the world of an adaptation. But as a fan, I hoped for the best. That hope did slowly die, and it did get to the point where I accepted a long time ago that my expectations were not going to be reached. They were going to be subverted. I thank you all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed my little rambling review of Game of Thrones overall. If you did enjoy Season 8, I'm happy for you. I really am. But I'm sure some people will rip me to shreds in the comment section. Welcome to the internet. I love you too, guys. But I'll leave you here. I thank you for watching. That is all for now. And now my watch is ended.